You're listening to Podketeers.
Welcome to episode 356 of Podketeers. We're turning the page as we start a new era in the podcast, and this week we formally introduce the two newest members of Team Podketeers, Larry and Andrew. We learn a little bit about each of them, and we have a roundtable segment with some of our Disney favorites, plus we talk a little bit about a new project coming very soon. It was a super fun episode, and we are happy to have them on board. If you have any thoughts that you'd like to share about this episode, we'd love for you to join the conversation over on Discord, and we'd love to hear some of your favorites as well. You can check out the blog post for this episode at podketeers.com/356 for an invite link. You can also connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Just search for Podketeers. Team Boat Willie is the official charity team of the Podkeeters podcast, and we're frequently working with different organizations to raise money to help their causes. For instance, right now we are currently in the middle of fundraising for the Children's Hospital of Orange County, CHOC. We've always been big fans of the CHOC Walk, but since we were unable to walk in the park like we normally do last year, the CHOC Walk is being held virtually. So we are currently holding auctions via Instagram for different things that some of our listeners and some of our FGP Squad members have donated. It's super fun. It's for a good cause. Make sure that you're following us on Instagram if you'd like to participate or help us out. If you'd like to join our team and help us fundraise, or if you'd just like to make a donation, you can find those links by going to teamboatwillie.com. Super easy to remember because it's just like Steamboat Willie, but without the S. If you have any questions about our fundraising efforts or want to help us in any way by donating an item for us to auction off, send us a DM and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have. To everybody that's either donated money, donated an item for us to auction off, or you've helped us spread the word just by reposting it on your social media accounts, thank you so much. It truly means a lot to us that you're helping us with these efforts. Speaking of FGP Squad, this episode is brought to you by the generosity of that special group of people. Who is the FGP Squad? Well, they are our podcast Fairy Godparents, and it's their support via Patreon that makes all this happen. As part of the FGP Squad family, you get some additional perks like exclusive discount codes for Podkeeters gear, additional content, and access to our monthly happy hour calls. For more information on how you can become part of the FGP Squad family, we invite you to check out podketeers.com/FGP. And as always, a super special thank you goes out to the FGP Squad for their continued support. We appreciate you taking the time to listen. Thanks for hanging out with us. So that's it. It's time to do the thing. Here is episode 356 of Podketeers.
Felt like kindergarten all over again.
Yeah,
Larry,
it works. Trust me.
forever.
It works. Trust me. We'll be okay.
It's helpful. It's helpful.
It is very helpful. It is. So I guess we should start by saying good morning, Anaheim.
Nice.
Very famous
Yep.
line from a film. I don't know many films, but I know that one. I know the one that Genie was in. He wasn't Genie.
That's
Close
going to be so relevant later when we get to me. Just a heads up.
Right? Well, that's awesome. That's really good news to hear. So this is the first episode that we are recording as our new Team Podketeers. Joining us today, Mel as always, but Larry and Andrew are here with us. We're super excited for this next chapter of the podcast. Welcome, fellas. It's good to have you on the podcast.
Great to be here.
Sweet. Bow, 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 bow. Airworm.
Yeah. Nope, Foghorn. Wrong one. Wrong
All
one.
Right.
Okay, so I figured this would be a really simple episode. You know, I figured that the best thing to do is, I know that some members of the FGP Squad have had an opportunity to meet you both since you were part of our happy hour calls, but our listeners at large have not had that same opportunity. So I figure we can go through just a regular gamut of questions. You know, you could tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you enjoy, walks on the beach and such, you know, type of beverage, and, you know, all the common, like what type of box of chocolates you like to get, and, you know what I mean, right?
Yes, for sure.
Whatever
Sounds
the wine
perfect.
and dine,
Yeah, you know.
whatever the wine and dine recipe is. And then normally what we like to do is we like to ask general Disney questions, like what's your favorite Disney animated movie, for instance, or what's your favorite Pixar movie. So we'll do a little bit of that later in the episode as well. And that'll pretty much be it. I think this will be a really fun episode just to get to know Larry and Andrew. If you're new to the podcast and you want to get to know me and Mel, I'm pretty sure there's episodes where we've done the same, but I guess we can just quickly run a short answer, right? Actually, that wouldn't be bad. You know why? Because going through Gavin's episode, I realized that some of his answers changed from when he first gave them to now. So maybe we should do this. Yeah, you know what? Let's just all four of us answer.
Get to know everyone.
Yeah,
For sure.
Reintroduction of Podkeeters.
I'm sure some answers are going to change, so why not?
That'll help new listeners, and old listeners will be like, that's not what you said.
Right?
Always good for the call-outs, right?
But you know what? It's good. We've had this conversation before where it's always good to evolve. You know, I always make fun of the keep in touch, never change that happens in yearbooks. And I've always said, you know, if you tell somebody not to change, but they happen to just be a jerk, you kind of want them to change. That's the meanest thing you could ever tell somebody. So with that in mind, I think we're all going to answer the question. So here we go. Larry, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, just a little bit about myself, guys. And Hazen, first off, I would never tell you to change. Let's just, I know I'm supposed to talk about myself, but I want to cover that. Hazen, you would be like,
How dare you, sir?
I would never tell you for a good reason. So let's put it like that. But to go back to me a little bit, I'm a big time Disney fan. Hazen and Melissa were nice enough to reach out to me through friends of friends. We all became like a part of that Disney magic where we have a little tie to each of us and Disney and how we know each other. One of the fondest memories to tie back to a little bit to Hazen and Melissa, when they introduced the Hatbox Ghost at the attraction in Disneyland, it was one of the very big memories I have of Hazen and Melissa going through the line that day and getting in there and being the first to experience it. And I think that might have helped Hazen a little bit realize how big a Disney fan. Melissa's always known that. A big key. Back, I guess, in the day to why this kind of means a lot to me to be on a podcast, the Podketeers specifically. Disney's always had a special place in my heart since I've been a kid. To now still a kid, but in an adult body. But it's always had some kind of tie back to this, the wholesomeness of being, you know, this story that takes you away from reality, but still has good morals behind it to give you influence of happiness, joy, and just like Hazen always ends up podcasts, give a little bit of the magic forward, right? Pay it forward, kind of the idea. So that for me, that's the core of me. And then the other part of me is just like this goofy guy that likes to talk a little bit too much. So that fits this criteria of being this outlet of talking. I have one of the bigger things, I guess, to show my Disney like dedication. Me and my wife met in high school, have that story that we didn't make it up. Like we didn't say like we have to be like this, but we met in high school. One of our first trips together was to the Disneyland Resort, and we found out a lot about each other. We were in a band club, and that's where we found out how much we both love Disneyland so much. And it just really built our relationship. I don't know about you guys, but when you're in a line for a queue, you want to be with your best friend. Because, folks, this is before Heads Up Day where you would play those games.
Yeah.
Oh,
right? Yeah. We were just talking, and we found out so much about each other. And it really cultured us being not only couple but best friends. And then lo and behold, years later, we were lucky enough to get married through Disney weddings and have part of our wedding at Disney California Adventure. And it was just the sealing note of pretty much my life to Disney. If I need to sign a contract, I literally signed it with the Disney wedding. But that is the story from then, and it's always been like a fairy tale from that point. And so I'm happy to share because I stay with Disney a lot now, following everything that happens a lot more here in Disneyland. But I do follow overall the movies and animation films, all the stories. Obviously now Star Wars, Marvel being a big part of it kind of just made it even better. So that's a little bit about me.
That is an awesome introduction. We're super happy to have you, of course. You know, we've had this conversation on, off the podcast, and we've talked about it on the Happy Hour call. And I'm excited for the energy that you're bringing to the podcast. I know your fandom runs deep. And I remember when I first heard your wedding story, I was like, damn, that, how everybody met and how everybody connected, I think was just one of those serendipitous moments in life that doesn't come very often. I think people refer to it as lightning in a bottle,
Yes.
and it's a beautiful thing. So I'm happy to have you on the podcast, man.
Sweet. Thanks, Hazen.
Andrew.
Hey.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
All right. Yeah. Andrew, of course, that's me. I came to Disney more, I guess, in high school. I was always like a little chicken fraidy cat kid growing up. So I still am now. But my first trip to Disneyland was in 2001. And I was just afraid of everything. I was a little old to be afraid of everything. I was about, I think, 9 at the time. And, going into, like, walking up to the Haunted Mansion, I had a panic attack and just bolted out. I had to have, like, an aunt come sit with me by a hat stand or something while everybody else got to go on the ride. And I had fun on my trip, but I was a little traumatized at the time. And then, time went on. I got a little braver and started getting more into Disney, into the films, into like researching the park's history and stuff like that. And that's kind of where I started, growing more appreciative of everything at the parks. And about 2010 is when I started going regularly. And around then I also got my annual pass, and I had an annual pass up until there were no more annual passes. So
for the homies.
a nice,
Right?
a nice long
Same.
run. Not as long as many, but long enough. And I love all things Disneyland. I love the Disney movies. Me and my wife got engaged at Disneyland. We weren't lucky enough to have a Disney wedding, but engaged at Disneyland was still pretty good to us.
Yep.
Melissa was there. It was great. You might have seen me around D23 Expo. I dress up as Sala every expo, running around trying to make people laugh, doing all kinds of fun stuff. So if you might have seen me around doing that. So that's a little bit about me.
Right on, man. Well, just like Larry, we're super excited and we're happy that you're a part of the podcast. Your Disney geekdom runs super deep as well. And I think I've connected with you because very similar to how you kind of jumped into the history, I did the same thing. But my rabbit hole was at the time doombuggies.com. I remember learning about doombuggies.com, and I remember just becoming enamored with the Haunted Mansion. So mine was the opposite of your first experience there.
Yeah.
But before I knew it, I was learning about backstage and Imagineering and the mechanics behind it. And I mean, I feel like even now I know a lot, but my brain doesn't always catalog it in a way where I think it's like, okay, you got that question? Here's your answer, right? But at random times, like I just throw out this random fact, or when my brain isn't going at full speed and I can concentrate on what's happening, I can spit out trivia, which is why, by the way, when we do trivia games, if I'm on your team, I'm so sorry in advance. Because I'm horrible at trivia.
It's in there
games
somewhere,
under
but I
pressure.
can't spit it out.
Yeah, it's so weird. I've noticed that it does kind of go along with how stressed I am in like the real world scenarios that I'm in, like at work and stuff. If I'm more stressed and tired, I'm horrible at trivia games. But if I feel like I got a good night's sleep, all full 2 hours, I'm like, yeah, I can do this.
Not okay.
Especially nowadays with that damn Animal Crossing game.
You're welcome.
Oh, wow. There's the enabler.
I'm really excited, especially what you're bringing aside from co-hosting Podketeers. Should we mention a little bit about that?
We can, yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about that. Give everyone a teaser of what's coming.
Oh yeah.
So coming to the newly founded Podketeers Network will be my own standalone show. It'll be a short 5 to 10 minute show called Quizneyland. We'll have some fun facts in the first segment, and the second segment will be some trivia questions, about 3 trivia questions, timer kind of, 30 seconds to answer. And, you get to learn a lot about, all kinds of different stuff. And it's going to be from all over the whole Disney company, Disney, Star Wars, ESPN, Disney Channel, Disney Plus, anything that they own, McDonald's connection, anything that, has once been around Disney, connected to Disney in any kind of shape or form, we'll try and cover it. So it, you can listen to it with everybody, somebody that likes sports, every once in a while there'll be a ESPN question, or somebody that's really into, only likes, Sophia the First or something. We'll have every kind of question. Hazen loves Sophia.
Nice.
Wow. And the true colors come out.
So it'll be a fun little, quick little show to fill in your little gaps. Get a little information, impress your friends. Next time, whenever you get to go out to Disneyland, maybe there'll be some Disney trivia you didn't know before you can impress your friends with while you're walking down through the parks.
Yeah, and I'm digging
cool.
the format. In how you're setting it up. I know we're going to be doing, some test episodes and some test segments, and just the way that it's been developing, I've been really happy with. And I know that our listeners are going to be super happy with it too. I love the quiz show aspect of it, and I think it's super exciting.
It's going to be real fun. And
yeah.
I've got a friend made some great music for it, so I have some good listening, music. The theme song's great. I'm in love with all the music that he's done, so it's going to be a fun time.
Right on. All right. Well, again, I just want to thank you both for accepting our invitation to be a part of the team. I'm really grateful for you both. I appreciate you. I love what you guys bring to the table, and I know that our listeners are going to feel the same way. So let's jump into some of the hard-hitting questions. Dun, dun, dun.
Rapid fire.
That's right.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. Timer set. Actually, there's no timer. We're just going to go for it. But let's start with Larry. What is your favorite Disney movie? Animated.
All right. I mean, this, like we mentioned earlier, Good Morning Vietnam ties into Robin Williams for sure. Aladdin. It's funny because I catch this movie a lot. I had my niece visiting right now as we're recording this, and I rewatched this movie. She always comes, when she comes, knows to rewatch this movie because as anyone, and I'm guessing you guys have kids, or maybe you even lived in it. When you were a kid and you rewatched a movie, you asked to watch it over and over and over again. This was the one for me. 90s movie came out. I was very young. I was born in 89. Just a little more background on me, but I was in that time period of when Aladdin came out. And from the beginning when I watched it as a kid, I think the charisma of Genie, I mean, he's a blue character, literally just lights up the movie. And his jokes and the, things popping out of everywhere, his songs, everything. As a kid, you just want to see that over and over again. He sings really cool. He makes things happen. He grants wishes. I mean, you're a kid, right? You want wishes to come true. And I think the thing as I got older, which really kept me hooked onto the animated version of Aladdin, is I appreciated the story on the side of Aladdin when you have Aladdin himself and the princess Jasmine both trying to find themselves as characters, and then you have the quirkiness of, and as they find themselves, they fall in love, and there's this nice love story. And then, like Hazen mentioned earlier, Robin Williams is always going to hold a special place in my heart for how much life he bring as a character to that Disney movie. I still to this day will quote that movie, over and over again. I know many of you Disney fans always know, a friend like me is like the song most quoted. I mean, A World of Color. I get the chills in World of Color when everyone sings along with that song, and I hear it there when I'm at the park. Those things speak to me because it's like something in history when you were a kid continues to go on past you, right? You're a legacy, right? So Aladdin's always done that for me. Robin Williams for sure. I always try to, like, the shirts they sell at Disney that say like "I'm here, Genie," like that comedy he had. It just stuck me throughout. So I love it for sure.
Right on, man. It's a great choice. Would you, just side question, it's not the next question, but just side question because you mentioned it. Was that the first film that you think you learned the entire soundtrack to, that you sang along to, like every single word?
Yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I mean, I know Hazen's probably like, let's do it, bust into it. If Hazen does go on a tangent.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Can your friends go poo? Hey, look at here. Can your friends go abracadabra? Let it rip.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, for sure. Every part. And then there's jokes like I always for no reason when I'm doing bad, we talk about games and quizzes, Andrew. I always do that. I'm losing to a rug. That's one of my favorite lines in that. It makes no sense, but I love when he's playing chess with if you don't know carpet, he's playing chess and he makes that line.
Right on, man. Right on. All right, Andrew, same question. What is your favorite animated film?
Well, I have a ton of affection for Aladdin as well, but I'm going to have to say my favorite animated film is The Emperor's New Groove. It can't beat it. It's
great.
That's choice. My most quotable. The same thing Larry can quote Aladdin front to back. I can, recite the whole script of The Emperor's New Groove. I've watched it hundreds of times, I'm sure. It's a great cast. The history behind it is kind of interesting. If you've seen the documentary about the making of it and the changing of it and everything that went on behind it. But the movie that came out, even though it wasn't anything close to what it was originally intended, is just, side splitting. It's hilarious. I love it. It's so quotable. It's my favorite. I just bought some Emperor's New Groove pins when I went down to downtown Disney the other day.
Oh, right on, man. Yeah, the Emperor's New Groove is a really special film in the pantheon of Disney because, there's not a lot of films that aren't necessarily musicals, but this one pulls off this like stickiness that you don't get from the other films. There's like a lot of really snappy one-liners, and it feels like an old school vaudeville show brought to animated film. Right?
Yeah.
True.
It does have some great music in it, too. Yeah. Even though it's not a musical, it has some great music.
Right. But yeah, man, great choice. I love that film.
I love it.
Yeah.
Mel.
Yeah.
Favorite Disney animated film?
This will never change, ever change. And you could quote me forever. It's Sleeping Beauty. Because it's just gorgeous. It's just beautiful. And for a princess that doesn't talk much and then gives more time to the villain, yes.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Solid choice. Beautiful animation, beautiful artwork, fantastic story. Can't go wrong with it. It's a classic.
Right.
And that leaves Hazen.
Yeah, so my answer is Beauty and the Beast. It's so awkwardly made in some places, but I don't care. I love it with all my heart and soul. It's ironic because, Larry talks about how everything connected for him with Aladdin. It didn't work like that for me. Like, I think the first one I saw was Little Mermaid, and I learned the soundtrack, and I could sing every song on Little Mermaid front to back. And then Aladdin, all I remember was... I wanted to find somebody to sing A Whole New World with when I was younger. It was like my dream to do that. And for a moment, I was considering just joining a choir just to be able to do that. And I never did it. But then Beauty and the Beast, the connection I have is like, I got my wife, right? Like, she learned to love a beast. And so that's the connection that I make. So that's why that's my favorite film. Plus, I like the story. So.
Oh yeah, and just tack on that. I mean, the story of the rose and the curse and all these
Yeah.
the
So
turns
beautiful.
in that.
There's a lot of
Just
nuances to it.
yeah, so much.
Yeah. Right on. All right, good choices, good choices. So, keeping animated, of course, but let's go into the digital realm now. Let's jump over to Pixar films. Larry, what is your favorite Pixar film?
Well, once again, this kind of keeps that same tone of things that came out in the 90s. I mean, Pixar's big heavy hitter is Toy Story, and I think they know that well on talking about, having 4 movies now for it. It had so much hype when I was younger. As a kid, there's this computer graphic movie coming out that you've never seen, and it really was that. When you first saw it, there was nothing, at least to my eyes as a child, that looked like that. The colors, the vibrance, and they bring these toys to life. They were toys. Like, you had seen other things that were animated, and they kind of tried to do the same thing, but alone in this story, as, you got Buzz Lightyear, Woody, these main characters that come to realize that they're just toys in that first story. I remember just thinking it was just an overload of just color at first when I watched it, but then I don't know, I didn't know I liked Tom Hanks, but I was gonna like Tom Hanks, I think, right? Because his voice, he's Woody. He's like the solid go-to character. I mean, we're talking about, Saving Mr. Banks, right? It's just like, it continues to be this trend as you get older. I think Disney knows this well, right? And I think as I got older, if we reference that, me and my wife, one of the things we did before we got married was we both, had a love and aspiration as well for Toy Story, but specifically Buzz Lightyear. We have a lot of our wedding themed around the words "to infinity and beyond," which could sound as corny as heck, but it really was something for us. We have it tattooed. I have "to infinity" and she has "and beyond." So it's like one of those things we had on our wrist. I know it's one of those things where you're like, sounds corny, but when we did it at the time, it means a lot to you because you kind of can go with it. I think I got the better deal of having "to infinity" because some people can see her arm and she says "and beyond." But that's just laying out there. But it's really just everything as you were a kid, and as you get older, now we watch them. I mean, I don't know about you, there was not a dry eye in my house, specifically like in Toy Story 3. It just wrecked my entire life for a couple of months.
Yeah.
It was a good movie, right? But it just, how I realized then as an adult how much this movie meant to me. I grew up with it. I really grew up with it. I did things I didn't know, and now, heck, I don't even want to get started. Andrew talks about when he goes to the park. I have a Buzz Lightyear backpack. I have I can't even do. I have each character, Woody, Buzz. I have them all. Like, I don't know why, but just seeing it makes me happy. So I know that's for sure my top Pixar film.
Right on, man. I'm right there with you, Buzz. This has to be my favorite character from that film specifically. But yeah, I don't think there was a dry eye when we saw that film. And even now, I still get choked up, watching that happen. And for me, I think watching it as a parent puts into perspective that there's all these stages in life that my boys are hitting, right? And eventually they're going to hit this college stage, and I'm like, stop, no.
Right? Yeah.
Just stop already. No.
Oh, no. I don't know about you, but
do
you feel like, I talk about this with my wife too, and anyone else that I say, do you feel guilty now when you have toys around the house? Like, you're a full adult, you're like, they're collectibles items now, but you're like, I can't throw it away. I got to do something to make it still have life.
Stuck in the package like Stinky Pete.
A little bit. And it's crazy. They don't feel anything, but at the same time, you're like, but what if they do?
What if they did?
Right.
What if I did give them
never
life?
know.
They do.
If it falls and it's like, oh my God, pick it up. Dust it. I'm so sorry.
There, I got you, baby. I got you. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Right on, man. Right on. Andrew, your favorite Pixar film?
I'm gonna have to choose a little later one from Larry's, but Monsters Inc. I think I'll have to go with Monsters Inc. It's a great movie. I'm a big fan of comedies that you'll see through these questions. I'm sure, depending on where we go, it's comedy. That's my bag. I love comedies, so I mean, and who can't? But who doesn't? But Monsters Inc. is just John Goodman and Billy Crystal, and it's such a good cast. It makes me laugh every time. It's another one of those quotable ones.
Oh yeah.
For me, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, to this day, whenever my kids are doing something wrong, I'll give them like the finger point to the eyes and point it back and be like, "Always watching, Wazowski. Always watching."
Did you file your paperwork, Wazowski?
Swoopsy poo. That's the other one I like. Yeah, man, that is such a great film, especially from second one when you hear that soundtrack and that jazziness up.
That's another connection between the Emperor's New Groove and Monsters Inc. for me is that music again, that jazz big band. That song in Emperor's New Groove, that chase song, Run Llama Run.
Yes,
it's a great big band song and the theme to Monsters Inc. It's just great. I love that big band stuff.
So good. I want to go back
love to laugh and love
now.
some big band. It's fun.
I want to go back and watch it now so bad. Okay. All right, Mel, favorite Pixar film?
Favorite one. Forever. It's going to be Coco. It has to be Coco.
Hard Street.
Such a soft spot for it.
Love it. It's great.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, man, it's such a beautiful film. It's so weird how in different stages of our lives, I feel like these types of questions seem to morph, right?
Exactly.
Because whenever you have milestones, obviously certain things hit different than when you first watched them. And Coco is definitely that for me. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in that like Mount Rushmore of Pixar films for me.
Yes.
And I thought a lot about this one recently as well, because I think of a coworker of mine, we were doing like icebreakers on a Zoom call or something for work, and this question came up, and I thought about it because they asked me about Coco and if I liked it and everything, and I stuck with my answer that I've always given for this, and that is WALL-E.
Beautiful movie.
There's so much about WALL-E that I appreciate because it, I've said this before, that it did so much to tell a beautiful story with absolutely zero dialogue in all of that time than most films do in twice the time with dialogue.
True.
And then you couple it with that soundtrack and that score, and Define Dancing is still one of my favorite musical pieces ever. And I've talked about how, like, in my head, I associate moments in my life with a piece of music, whether or not it's playing. Whatever piece of music seems to pop into my head for the very first time is kind of how I remember those moments. And when my oldest son was born, the very first time that I held him in my arms, Nemo Egg started playing, right? And so that is like forever ingrained in my head as that moment. When I first held my younger son, Define Dancing was playing, and all right, I'm gonna get a little emotional, so let's go.
So our Mount Rushmore, our Pixar Mount Rushmore for everybody, it'll be WALL-E, Miguel, Buzz Lightyear, and Roz.
There you go.
That's not bad, man. That's a really good Mount Rushmore.
Somebody should draw that up.
That'd be pretty cool.
Listener art.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Every time I hear "Put on Your Sunday Clothes," I thought of Main Street. They played that song, and then when WALL-E plays that song, oh, dude, you talk about feels and emotions. That kicked me into gear every time I hear that song. But
well,
amazing.
Up is kind of the same way, right? Because in those first 9 minutes of Up, like they wreck you.
Just
yeah.
Man, Michael Giacchino, dude, he knows how to pull those heartstrings. Oh, I'm hip to you, sir. I know what you're up to. You know what? Inside Out is also one of those films. I haven't really ever thought about it at that level, but I guess technically I should, considering that in Animal Crossing, my island's name is Nomanasone Island. So considering that it's the play on the words "no man is one," but it's from the Imagination Mover segment of the Inside Out film. So Nomanasone Island is my island in Animal Crossing.
A deep pool.
So
sweet.
Nice.
Maybe I should give it a little look-see again and give it more credence in the future. All right.
I see those gears going.
Developing.
Right?
Yeah.
Stay tuned. Okay, let's move over to favorite Disney live-action movie. Larry.
For me, the live action, which is kind of a turn for me, it's Tron. Legacy, the newest Tron. I know
Oh,
some
yeah.
people may the older Tron. I had watched it very briefly as a kid with my dad. Okay, so maybe there's a little bit of tie to what Tron Legacy really is, the movie story, right? So there's my heart tie. But Tron Legacy, when I watched it, I had no expectations, and then I was a little older in my life, and I was really into these, lighting technology and this idea of being inside of a game. I'm always about being full immersion, and then him having the story behind being in there. And you talk about soundtracks. I mean, R.I.P. Daft Punk. I'm so sorry. Daft Punk killed it. I was already a fan of Daft Punk before that, and Melissa would know this because we've played a lot of music before, and this was one of those things where I was like, I always had a Daft Punk song on any playlist I have. And this soundtrack, like, to tell you how much it meant to me, when I graduated from college, I played the end titles of Tron to like celebrate my last test.
Yes,
that's what I played that. My wife came home.
Dude, it's perfect.
It's not even. She was driving home and she hears me blasting the song and she walks in. And she's like, "Everything okay?" I'm all like, "I just did my last test. I'm done." And I'm playing the credits.
That's it.
It was that movie. The technology I think was ahead of its time. The soundtrack I think was ahead of its time. And look at the ride, how much it's loved. If you think about over, on the overseas park over there, they're trying to bring it here now. It's just an undervalued, very expensive production, I'll admit, when they made it. And I just don't think it gets the praise it should. But I love it. The storyline's great. Love Jeff Bridges. Not as much comedy, like as you would say, but when I go comedy, my very close, I'm gonna have to mention it because it's Pirates of the Caribbean, which ties into the answer we'll talk about later. But that is very close for me for live action. I loved all of those movies, and it's not just Johnny Depp. It's the sets, it's the music, it's the comedy, all tied into actors of, like Andrew's mentioned, the cast they had for those movies. Not just Johnny Depp. You're talking, Orlando Bloom, Jeffrey Rush. These people were in other movies before that I'd watched and made such an impact on me. So those are very tied. I could go either way. I'll have to go with that for sure.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them. I mean, for everything that you said, I could see why that would be a difficult choice for you to make. That the costuming and the sets for Pirates, man, just the legacy that film has left behind, and how high it raised the bar for so many other films in the future is unparalleled. So
for sure,
I agree, man. Those are really great choices. Andrew, favorite Disney live action film?
Live action. It's the Apple Dumpling Gang. No, I'm just kidding. It's not the Apple Dumpling Gang. It's not. I'm gonna consider this a live action because it's mostly live action. Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That's
nice.
I just watched this movie with my niece for the first time she'd ever saw it. I'm sorry, I didn't jump in, and I was like, "You have to watch this. It's so good."
My favorite movie of all time, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's holds a special place in my heart. It's it's 80% live action. Mostly live action. So I'll put it in that category. And it's Roger's my favorite character. We'll get to that, I'm sure. And it's just again with that jazzy music that's in there, the comedy, the slapstick, the everything. Bob Hoskins is great as Eddie Valiant, Christopher Lloyd. It's just a fantastic, perfect movie in my opinion. I love Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, and what a way to celebrate something that historically speaking we're probably never ever going to see again to that capacity.
Yeah,
seriously.
Right? The types of deals that were made in order to get that many characters and that many companies to exist as one film, even if Disney keeps consuming other companies the way that they have been, it's just, I don't think we're ever going to see that. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see like a Simpsons crossover into a Mickey Mouse cartoon, right?
I agree with you. Yes,
so
it
was a one and done, and they did it perfectly.
Exactly.
In my opinion.
Right on.
It's
Great
fantastic.
choice, man. Great choice. And yeah, I count it as live action. So
that's what it's gotta be. It's gotta be. It's not a completely animated film, so if you consider Mary Poppins live action, then Who Framed Roger Rabbit's live action.
Oh, totally.
I'll touch a little bit more on
Totally.
that when I get to my choice, but yeah.
Okay.
So-
Okay.
Mel, favorite Disney live
Hey.
action?
I can't even remember my last answer. And I was trying to remember. I'm like, what did I say? And I think I said Jungle Book. I don't know.
remember.
But I don't remember.
The
But
90s Jungle Book or the newer Jungle Book?
Oh, live
I
action.
think I said the newer one.
Yeah.
But if you had asked me like maybe 2 more months from now, I'm going to say maybe Cruella because I can't, it's hard to settle. It is so hard. I would say, of course, I'd say Indie, I'd say Trump. I'm like, I kind of want, like, it's good. It's been hard to really choose one. But, you know what? I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to say prediction right now. It's going to be Cruella when it comes out.
Wow, that's
'Cause-
high.
Wow,
praise
this is
already.
Mel from the future now.
And I'm saying that.
Nice.
That was good.
Nice.
All right, we'll have to revisit it in a couple
We
months.
spin
and
the
see what
TARDIS
happens.
here.
Right. It's hard, and the reason I won't say like indie, it's because indie's like its own thing. So it's always been like Nightmare.
Yeah.
Nightmare is its
Yeah.
own little category, so I've always
I
had a
agree.
problem with that. But you know what? Yeah, I must say Cruella.
Right on.
I mean, those trailers, they're giving me villains, so
Yeah. You know,
I've been dying for a villain movie.
I have to say that they've done a really great job of marketing Cruella so far. So much
Yeah.
better than they did with Maleficent. Because with Maleficent,
Mm-hmm.
it almost immediately didn't feel like a villain film. And this one does. Like, she seems
Yes, it
mean.
does.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So I'm
Uh-huh.
digging it so far.
Somebody you just don't you want to not like, and that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I guess we're gonna have to revisit this after the film and see how you feel again once it's released. So we'll ask you
Sure.
the question once it's been released.
Developing story again.
That's right. I thought about this when I was thinking about the questions to ask, and I have to say that I think I'm gonna stick to the answer that I feel I gave the last time, and I'll tell you what I possibly would have said, and that is the original Mighty Ducks film. I'm not gonna make that my choice,
Ah.
but my kids and I have been watching the new Mighty Ducks series on Disney Plus, and I love it. I'm so hook, line, and
Wow.
sinker, like on board with that series. But I also really love the original Mighty Ducks series. Like, I picked up a hockey stick and got skates because of that film. Right? I sucked, but I did it, damn it. And, I always felt like, well, if they could make something of themselves skating, why couldn't I? Obviously, I didn't have Gordon Bombay, that's why. But, watching it with my kids, we decided to go back and watch the original films as well, so that they had the context of where Gordon comes from and everything. And as we were watching the first one, I noticed that they were cheering at the same parts that I would cheer when I was a kid. They would get excited and they would get worried at the same points. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, at least, they get the film. They understand everything that's happening. And this is like one more thing we can bond over. And that's great. But I think I'm going to stick to the film I said last time, and that's Infinity War. No, I'm sorry, Endgame. And
I was
the
gonna
reason,
say.
yeah, and I'm sorry, I have the new Avengers cards in my hand right now, and because they're based technically on Infinity War or the Infinity Saga, they actually say Infinity Saga right on the
Sweet.
side. Which, by the way, we're going to be giving some of these away to some lucky listeners. So details on that will be coming soon, but that's called a teaser, kids. But
Just
the
kidding.
reason-
I'm not on the show anymore. I want to win those.
The reason
Just
I want
kidding.
to
Just
choose
kidding.
in the Endgame is because, I haven't seen another film, maybe Toy Story 3, that wraps up a franchise so beautifully, right? And not only just 2 or 3 films, this is a decade worth of films that it tied
Exactly.
together, gave you everything wrapped up in a beautiful bow. Did I lose my favorite Avenger? Yeah. but I like thinking back on it. It was the right thing to do. Tony started it. Tony had to end it. And the way that they wrapped it up was, I mean, I just thinking about it gets me emotional. Like, I love that film so much. I can watch it over and over, and even anticipating the snap and just watching Tony just say, yeah, well, I'm Iron Man. And then, it happens. Like, thinking about it gets me emotional, and I know it's coming, and it still gets me every single time.
Right.
So, for my live action, I'm going to choose Endgame. And that's why, if I'm choosing Endgame as live action, Who Framed Roger Rabbit is fine, because, let's face it, 90% of Endgame was green screened. So,
Yep.
so yeah, it's live action.
Nice.
We won't even talk about live action Lion King now, will we?
Yeah, live action.
Live action.
Live
Air
action,
quotes.
yeah. That's right. That's right. Let's shift to the... Oh, actually, you know what? What's your favorite Disney character? I think we kind of answered this in some of our questions already, but let's just actually give a solid answer for this one. So, Larry, favorite Disney character, favorite Pixar character?
So Disney character you would guess would be the genie, but he's not my favorite. He's my very favorite movie in the character, but it's Goofy. And once again, this is one of those things that's funny. It's that 90s vibe. The Goofy movie came out in the mid 90s. And when I watched the movie, it's funny. One of these things, I just rewatched it with my niece. It's like everything we're hitting. I'm seriously, it's like weird, like you guys are watching me or something. But I rewatched it with her, and I realized why I liked Goofy then. It was like a teenage movie, which is weird because I was like a kid. And this is an animated film, right? But it made me love Goofy because for all the reasons that he's this cool, quirky dad, and he's trying to stick to the values of influencing his son with his family morale. He's trying so hard to make this trip to go right. And he's just goofy. He just has this natural instinct. And for me, it spoke always the rest of my life to the idea of, like, I'm klutzy. I'm very comedic. I try to, like, make jokes out of things that really is just me falling on my face. And I like when they work out in my favor as Goofy. That tends to happen a lot for him. So that movie kind of set the tone. Then later on, I just kept watching, earlier Goofy things and what kind of character. I can never get down any of the laugh, the chuckle. I would wish someday to be that good to do like a good Goofy impression, but I just relate with them. I always say that's my long lost brother. Every time I take pictures, I say, "Oh, this is my long lost brother." But Goofy's my guy.
You want me to get Bill on the phone so he could teach you how to make the voice happen?
Right? Pixar related.
Just a phone call away.
Right. Oh, that would be sweet. Wow. I mean, for Pixar, it's really hard for me because it's funny now. I had a pretty clear, distinct, Buzz Lightyear. It's always been kind of something that goes with me. But it's funny because now Melissa kind of threw a kink in it, bringing up Coco. I forget, like the series that we go through because I get so caught in my old routines of what I like. But bringing up Coco a lot, I really like the characters and overall, the main character in the movies. Terrific, but just the idea of Coco, I like those Pixar characters, that cast, and what they do in that story. So it's really hard for me. But I'm gonna lean back onto Buzz Lightyear. That's probably gonna be my go-to for sure.
Right on. Yeah, those are solid choices, man. Can't go wrong with any of those.
Yeah.
Andrew,
Yeah.
same question.
If you couldn't guess, yes, my favorite Disney character, and I'm going to call him a Disney character, even though it's a touchstone film, is Roger Rabbit. It's in the parks, it's in Disneyland, it's Roger Rabbit. Larry said he wished he could do an impression of Goofy, and I've got a halfway decent Roger Rabbit, I think. So that's always fun to break out at the parks and scream at people with it.
You're being modest. It's very good. I hope
Yeah.
you
All
share it with
right.
the audience.
It's a good pal, Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
Here on Podkeeters.
There you go. That's
Come
There it
on.
is,
So
everybody.
awesome.
That's not halfway decent. That's like you should have been hired to be a part of the film.
Oh, thank you so much, Hazen. It's so fun to be Roger Rabbit here on Podkeeters.
See, okay, so here we go. So we're gonna revive this character for Disney Plus, and we're gonna give Roger his own series where he does his Rogery things. And Andrew, you got the job. I'll make a couple of
Seriously.
calls. I'll
There
give
you go.
Bobby a call and see what he can do, who he can connect me with, and we'll make this happen.
Okay, I hope Charles Fleischer won't be mad at me because he's still alive.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's okay.
Gotta
Right on,
pass the
man.
torch some point.
Yeah, you have to.
He has to. He'll be the mentor. You know,
Exactly.
he's getting up there in age. It'll be kind of like a Tony Anselmo kind
Right.
of Clarence
Yeah.
Nash
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to, man.
And then Pixar. I cannot do an impression of. I'll pick Ham from Toy Story.
Wow.
Really, any John Ratzenberger character
Yes.
in any Pixar film is the best. But Ham, I love Ham. He's so witty. On my Disneyland app, Ham's my icon on there. You can't beat Ham.
Right on, dude. Yeah,
Full
I
Mr.
have to agree,
Porkchop.
man. Every one of his characters is just fantastic. And I remember when I was younger, I used to walk around trying to impersonate his character from Cheers and just be like, hey, Normie.
Hey, no.
Yeah, I bet you Woody has that drink for you over there. And I just over and over, and I would record myself, and at one point I was like, it's never going to happen, so whatever. And I just let it go. But you always have those dreams, right, where maybe you could take over for somebody else. And I thought, well, maybe I should just be Mickey Mouse. And I was like, you're shooting high, bro. Don't even try it. Like, especially now, like Brett Iwan and Christy Mentopoulos. And I think the closest that I've ever been able to get is we would walk around the Emporium, and when my kids were younger, when they were still in a stroller, we'd walk around and I'd pick up the little Mickey dolls, and to make them laugh or something, I'd be like, oh boy, and then they'd kind of laugh and they'd giggle, and then we'd like move on, right? But I could never get past that. Like, you had an entire dialogue as Roger, and I'm like, oh boy. that's
That's the best oh boy I've heard.
That's all you get.
So there
You
you
know,
go.
and it's a lot better than some of those 70s and 80s Mickey Mouse where they didn't know what was going on. And you just
Oh,
sounded
yeah.
like, oh, it's me, Mickey Mouse, and I'm here. I'm the thing, and it's Mickey
Yeah.
Mouse. I'm here in my house, and I answer the phone on the den. It's Mickey Mouse.
That's true. That's true. Those were scary, man. Straight up
Yeah.
scary. Right on. Mel, your favorite
Hey.
Disney and Pixar characters?
For Disney, for sure, it is always Maleficent. Lately, it's been Merriweather with their sass and stuff, but it's usually Maleficent. Oh, for Pixar, that's so hard. Trying to think, and I'm trying to think between Miguel or Jesse. Like,
Oh.
between them two.
Yeah.
Between them two. Ooh. You know what? I'm gonna go Jessie.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm
Strong
gonna go with her
choice.
because she's. Yeah.
One of the most developed backstories, I'd say, in Toy Story for a character when you watch, seeing that Proctor and that storyline and them being where they
Absolutely.
are.
Yeah.
That's a good choice, I think. Well, Toy Story fan over here, biased, but
Right.
Right on. Yeah.
So
those
far
are
we have
solid choices.
three Toy Story characters.
I know.
I wonder.
But they're so good.
Yeah. Yeah. My choices would be Disney. The character itself, I think, is really hard. I don't think I've ever been able to fully answer this question, but the more that I think about it, if I had to lean towards one of the two that I'm thinking, I'm gonna go with Steamboat Willie, the version of Mickey Mouse that's Steamboat Willie.
yeah.
And I just I like that version of Mickey because not just because he's used as kind of the opening for Disney animation and stuff like that, but I feel like it's when Mickey really found his stride. Although Plain Crazy and all of that was around the same time, Steamboat Willie with the music and everything has become so iconic that you almost instantly recognize it if you're
Yeah.
a Mickey Mouse or a Disney fan.
That
So,
whistle.
yeah, that whistle is definitely iconic. And if I had to choose a close second, it would be Oswald. And
Oh,
only
nice.
because everybody talks about how it all started with a mouse, but it technically started with a lucky rabbit. and then kind of became
Mm-hmm.
all about a mouse. So of the two, I'd obviously put Mickey on top, but yeah, Oswald's like a hairline behind that choice. And Pixar, this one I think as more Pixar films become available to us, it's gotten harder and harder to continue thinking that my favorite character is my favorite character. But when I go back and I think about what the character brought to the table, for the same reason I chose it as my favorite film, I'm going to choose Wall-E. Again, I think for a character that shouldn't be able to emote as much as he does, he damn sure does it
Mm-hmm.
well. It's a box with eyes, and
Yeah.
you get so much emotion from that film, from that character. And once you finally hear him speak, the synthesized voice still is able to show that emotion that he's feeling or that he's beginning to learn to feel. So, yeah, I'm going to stick to Wall-E on that one.
Good choice.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
You talk about the voice. I
Uh,
always do the wow. Whenever I do a wow, I'm always trying to
Wow.
wow. Yep, exactly. Talk about an impersonation.
Okay, so let's shift to the parks for a moment, and that's, I think, where we're going to wrap it up for today. But let's talk about favorite land and favorite attraction. So, Larry, let's start with you again.
This is very okay. So the attraction, I'm gonna jump right into. It's Pirates of the Caribbean, as I mentioned, a live action movie I had always had a feeling for, and I think this is before the live action movies. And I'll tell you, as a kid, I remember going to Disneyland to this ride, and there's, just like Andrew mentioned, don't feel ashamed, I'm positive there's more podcast listeners that went on to certain rides and were like, heck no, beeline the other way. This was one of those rides where I did get a little scared, but there was not enough time to turn around. The queue at that time was quick, and when it got dark, it was like, you're there, you're on, right? You're kind of scared.
Yeah.
Right? And there was rides at Disneyland that spooked me too. But when I got on this one, I distinctly remember getting in the boat and feeling like I was in a real boat. And now I look at it as an adult, and you're like, what would you think? It's it's the ride vehicle, but you thought you were in a boat because of the water that you go into immediately. You do this drop, you go in, and then you see these animatronics, and everything was larger than life. And it's a dark ride, so you feel like you're immersed once again as a kid, and you're just hearing loud noises, you're seeing smoke, and then you're seeing pirates to your right, to your left. Things are changing, then there's a fire, and there's people in jail. It was so much as a kid to take in. And as I got older, those things I began to like, I gotta ride this. And it always felt like 15 minutes of the day, which is a long time for anything in these days, right? Flew by though, because it was every time I got on the ride, there was always something that caught my attention to be like, wow, they actually pulled that off. And then what really helped develop my love for the ride was the movies. When they came out, it started doing that thing like I just mentioned earlier, where me, Hazen, and Alyssa were at for Hatbox Ghosts. When they were showing it to everyone, there was this atmosphere. I mean, don't get me wrong, I hated the lines pirates had for a while because of the movies, like, because everyone wanted to see Johnny Depp, right? And the line was humongous. I hated that. But the other part of me, the good Disney fan, was like, this is awesome to have all these people here and a fandom again of pirates, to be wearing like the pirate hat or the jewelry or whatnot, trying to look like Johnny with the dreads. I bought into all that, and it's always been a ride that had a special to me, because once you go into, my favorite part of that ride is once you go into the battle scene, and they got the smoke, and sometimes you get a cannon fire, and I always love being the person like, oh, I'm like old, I know where the lights are, but oh, there's a bomb, oh, there's a bomb, oh, there's a bomb. You're just hoping to get that, and that's my favorite attraction. I love New Orleans, that land, and I don't know if it's funny because they both tie together. I don't know if it's because of, there's not many, the Haunted Mansion, obviously I love it, and Pirates of the Caribbean, my number one. Those two rides in that area, it's the vibe of it. Like, you talk about music, hearing the jazz. And before, they used to have the guitarist player there. I'm sorry, I beg
yeah.
my apologies. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but those things, I used to just sit in New Orleans to listen to that, to get that vibe, and that still continues to be one of my spots, especially during the day. You know, I'm always trying to catch some beads. I'll do whatever for beads, but I'm just kidding.
Good to know.
But yeah, good to know, right? And you know, hearing that they see, you might not see, but in my background I have the Rivers of America with the Mark Twain on it. It's hearing that Mark Twain go by, you know, that those things take me away. They give me this immersion. Something about water being there too, I'm thinking, kind of gives me that full immersion vibe.
Yeah, right on, man. Yeah, I can't disagree with anything that you said. You know what's funny? You were talking about going on pirates and feeling like that when you were a kid. Ironically enough, though, I feel like that as an adult, as a photographer, because there's so much to see and so much to try to capture that you don't know where to turn, and you're so immersed in that world that there's times that you can let go of reality and feel that you're there, you know, and it's happening, you know, to you, and you forget that they're animatronics, and it's awesome. Man, such a great attraction. Damn, so good. Andrew,
You were describing the boats. Sorry.
no,
No,
yeah.
go ahead,
For a
Melissa.
moment,
Go
I'm
ahead. Go.
I was like all into the just being on the boat and then whoosh, the air coming by and stuff because of the
The
cannons.
cannons,
Took me away for a moment.
right?
You get that little splashback from when the
Right.
bounce hit the water on a
I
nice
know it's coming.
warm day. You're like, it feels so good.
Thank
Good
So I have to
smell.
cover up my
Roaming
glasses so
smell.
they get water on them.
That's awesome. Andrew, favorite attraction?
Yeah,
favorite land?
yeah, this will be no surprise to anybody that knows me, but favorite land would be Adventureland. It's got my favorite attraction in it, which is Indiana Jones. You know, Adventureland, and Adventureland's got so much going for it too. Jungle Cruise, Tiki Room, Shrunken Ned, Dole Whips. I mean, you can go on and on.
Everything.
It's such a small land, such a small footprint, so crowded, strollers everywhere. But you know, I love me some Adventureland, and it's, you know, it's great. I love me some Shrunken Ned in Adventureland. Bengal barbecue, you know, there's, you know, I don't know what else. Tarzan's Treehouse. Yeah, I'll just name everything.
Just name everything.
Pass
Go for it.
Machine.
Yes.
The restrooms.
Rosita, you know, everything's in there.
That really cool
A
Mickey-looking
wall
stone
full
on the
of
floor.
orbs. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
gotta see those sea oars. But yeah, and then Indiana Jones, my favorite attraction. I love Sala. Cosplay as Sala at D23. Indy's got a big, you know, takes up a big place in my heart. It's, you know, again, there's the, you know, a lot of that 20s, 30s. There's jazz in there, big band stuff in there, music wise,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
you know, Sala's great. You know, I love Sala. He's he's so fun. And the attraction's fun, and you know, it's one of those where it's like kind of the first to do a little bit of the switch it up.
Oh, wow.
You know, you get to choose. You know, you know, each chamber, if you go into riches
Exactly.
or youth or future, you know,
Mhm.
you know, off the top of my head, I can't think of another one that was that successful at doing it before.
Yeah.
Switching it up like that, and that's, you know, such a cool effect, and it's different now, but it's still cool, and it's great.
I agree.
I can on and
Yeah,
on about
super
it.
solid choices. I have to agree with you on Adventureland, man, that for such a small footprint, it's just so well developed. You know, they fit so much into that tiny area that it's difficult not to feel that you're really in this, you know, part of the world. So, yeah, I dig that, man. Good answers. Mel.
There's something
Yeah.
about being in that queue of Indiana Jones, and you hear the Jungle Cruise boats going by with the engines, and then you
Yeah.
hear like the big band music, like you're talking about, Andrew. That's where I get that.
You
full-
can hear the generator. That's
Let's not talk about the
generating
generator.
lights and
The generator is the one that, for me, it's like one of those things. Like when I was younger, it's like, what the is that? much noise. And and then you get older and you're like, oh, okay. But
And you watch the lights and it goes with it.
I think I'm very
cool
mad
effect.
because I didn't realize. It took me, I say I figured it out. I probably figured it out maybe a year and a half ago. No, I wasn't that
You
smart.
just discovered
That's
it.
funny.
That's it.
That's funny. I remember feeling angry also, but I found out about it in like a trivia book or something like that. I was reading through like, did you know that? I was like, what? And then like the next time I went, I was like, oh my god, the book was right.
Yeah.
If anybody ever needs, I have that whole isolated audio of just the generator we can play.
Oh, great.
Right on.
So you can go to sleep to. That's some relaxing sounds.
There you
of
go.
The generator to go to sleep to.
Sweet
This
dreams.
week in Podkeeters ASMR, the
No,
from
expanding the network.
There you go.
ASMR Disney sounds.
on a recurring loop, just 1 hour of that humming.
Just for you.
That's funny. All right, Mel.
Oh.
Favorite land, favorite attraction.
Oh, this is gonna be a tie because I can't split the two. My heart is in Adventureland, but my soul is in New Orleans Square. So, yeah, I have to name these two. Again, my heart is totally in Indy. Like that attraction just never gets old. I may be biased, but but yeah, that attraction never ever gets old. I mean, even if there's like little touches, if the lights go off, it's a new experience. Hey, it's like closing your eyes, right? So, but yeah, Indy and Haunted Mansion, like it stinks when it's March Mayhem and we have to vote against them like we did the other time. Like I can't do that. So there you go. Them two.
Yeah. Solid choices. So, are you
Yeah.
gonna go with both lands as well for each attraction? Are you splitting the land and splitting
Sure.
attraction?
Split me up. Go for it.
Okay. All right. You know
Yes.
what? I can't be angry at that because I've done that many a times. So I'm totally for it. If you can't make up your mind, sometimes you have to split the difference. That's why I mentioned Oswald, but it was just a
Yeah.
hair, that brought Mickey to the forefront. Very cool. Very cool. I have to agree with Larry that New Orleans Square holds a really special place in my heart because I would do the same thing. I would sit around and I just kind of listen to the ambient noises, the music in the background, and I always envisioned, some of our armchair Imagineering ideas ending up in New Orleans Square and just making it so much better. Plus, you got Club 33, the Blue Bayou, and all that cool stuff that was there. But I have to say that having never seen it yet, and I know it's just opening and it's not complete, I almost feel like Avengers Campus is going to give it a run for its money once it's open.
Oh,
So
yeah.
for now, I'm
Yeah.
going to stick to my choice and say that my favorite land is New Orleans Square, contrary to popular belief that it's Tomorrowland. And attraction, I really had to think about this one, but I'm gonna stick with the Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I'm kidding. Haunted Mansion, obviously, is my favorite.
I'm quitting the podcast. No. Good run,
man.
guys.
All
Bye.
50 plus minutes. Great run. Obviously Haunted Mansion. Again, it's the attraction itself finds a really great balance between humor and spooky. It's one of the best developed attractions that Imagineering has ever put together. And on top of that, it feels timeless. Even though we know the effects, we know how things are done, it doesn't have a fully sussed out story the way that other attractions do, but it just works, and that's one of the, biggest charms about the mansion. And on top of that, that was my rabbit hole into the Disney company and Imagineering. You can't go into that rabbit hole and not claim stake as that being your favorite attraction. So obviously the Haunted Mansion. So
Terrific.
all right.
Nice.
Well, I mean, there's so many other questions that I think we could ask, but I think we'll save those for another day. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Right
Yeah,
on.
so-
Right
I
on.
do have something though. I just want to wrap up with Hazen. For me,
Sure.
I'm pretty sure Andrew could, go voice with this as well. I'm very thankful to be included a part of Podketeers here. I want to make sure, if you're here listening to this part of the podcast, you're one of those ones we're speaking to. That it's been a journey to get to this point with Hazen and Melissa and the ones before, Gavin. I might not ever be able to follow that smooth sensations of voice tone as Gavin, but we're, me and Andrew, like I said, are here as a happy to add on to what already Hazen and Melissa have made. I'm excited. I could speak on my half, and I'm looking forward to what it really is, like Hazen has talked, the connections that you make with Disney and friends and people you find. Because if you're listening to this, you probably need a little Disney in your life, and we would love to interact with everyone. We want to provide things that give you that feeling in your day, and that's what keeps us going. We love it, and I'm very happy myself that, like Hazen said, when he asked us, it was an honor first, and secondly, it was very exciting. I can't wait to bring more to this podcast. I'm so excited.
Couldn't have said it better, Larry. Feel the same way.
Well, I appreciate you
Tears.
guys. Thank you for that. I've told you many times before that we're lucky to have you both on board. We're thankful that you both accepted to be on the
Totally.
podcast. And I agree with you, Larry. That sensation that you get, that feeling, that Disney magic that comes into your heart. I'll be the first to say, is the Disney company perfect? No. We've talked about that off the podcast. We've even talked about it on our happy hour calls and all sorts of stuff. But we recognize the magic that Disney brings to people, and we know how it can be a substitute for things that aren't necessarily always perfect for some people. It's an escape from reality. It's a way of giving you a happy place when sometimes you don't have one. And I have to admit that the last year, it was humbling to hear and to read messages from people that told us, hey, we're really thankful for your podcast. It really helped me get through the months that we were at home. But I would be lying if I didn't say that it helped me get through it too.
Right.
Being here,
Same.
having the opportunity to talk to all of you, and having the opportunity to, so many are first to jump at the negative because it's easy to jump at the negative. And it's not that we don't do it, and it's not that we're trying to ignore it. It's that we understand what the Disney magic can do for people. And we may not work for the company, but we feel that magic, and we want to continue spreading it the way that it helps us get through things. So, I think you guys are perfect. I've mentioned before that people leaving and people coming on the podcast, I don't see as just people. I see them as the Imagineers of this podcast, right? And you guys are just two more Imagineers that are bringing your perspective, your experiences, you to the podcast, and there's going to be a piece of you embedded into what we do going forward and forever. So thank you guys. Thank you both for being here. I'm super excited for everything that we're going to get a chance to do in the future. So many plans, and I'm happy. Yeah, I'm going to start. Man, I'm tearing up already. Okay, I think it's time to end the podcast. So, outside of those beautiful words that you had, Larry, Andrew, Mel, any closing words?
I'm just excited for the new chapter.
It's going to be great.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's do this.
All right. So there you go. There's a brief introduction to our new co-hosts, Larry and Andrew. More on Andrew's new podcast will be coming soon, so make sure that you're following us on all our social networks. Make sure that if you haven't joined us yet, follow us over on Discord. Become a part of the conversation there as well. We're a brand new community, so we're very slowly growing, but we love the conversations that we've had an opportunity to have with everybody there so far. If you have any questions, questions, make sure to shoot us a message. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for Podketeers. That's Podketeers. And that's it. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. So until next time, keep dreaming, keep moving forward, and always remember to pass on the magic. Have a fantastic week, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Adios.